Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And that makes me Kevo.
And that makes this a very special X's for Comics. I am so excited. You know, it's so rare that you get to combine things you love this much. I get to have my husband, animation, and the X-Men all in one conversation. I feel like I won the 97 Lotto. This is so much fun. I'm really excited that we're here to talk about the third and fourth episodes of X-Men 97 Season 2, or as I might call them, the Xavier Magneto gay party.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to joke that this episode two-parter should be called A Tale of Two Boyfriends, because whether it's Magneto and Xavier, or it is Apocalypse and his boyfriend Ball, who there was definitely something going on between Apocalypse and the character voiced by Michael Dorn. So yeah, pretty gay episode if you ask me. Plus John Delancey as Kang. How much gayer can you get?
John Delancey, Q from Star Trek The Next Generation, torturing a character that is ostensibly a Patrick Stewart stand-in. Oh,
that
come
was
on.
Great.
That is some casting. That was a decision that I do believe I agree with. So, okay, let's take this back a minute. Magneto was not always right, but he had some fundamentally strong points, okay? And I say this because as somebody who is the first person to say Magneto has been evil less than he's been good, he is still a problematic, complicated character to discuss. And Xavier is, in many ways, not significantly better. Part of the problem is Xavier has good intent and good goals and seeks to achieve them in ways that he himself finds surreptitious. Magneto has outright diabolical plans at times. I mean, there's literally issues where he flat out says, I'll never forget, it's an issue in the early Alan Davis era. It's right near the Magneto War. He is talking to a human, pretending to be a human. And he says to this guy, oh, so what do you think of these mutants? And the guy is like, I'm fine with mutants. I love the idea of the world changing, and I might be a little scared that I'll get left behind. But I believe that mutants are people and that they will show understanding and love for my fear of being forgotten because I don't fear them. And Magneto is not impressed with this answer and basically is like, well, what if a mutant killed your kid? How would you feel then? Would you like mutants if a bunch of mutants killed the people you love? And the guy is like, well, no, I guess at that point I would hate mutants. And then it was like, see, I told you, you hate mutants, and kills him. So and that's 1998. That's not that long ago compared to the fact that 1964 is when this bit kicked this shit off.
So you said something once that I think is a really amazing and important point, which is that the love for Xavier comes completely from the Patrick Stewartification of the character. The fact that Picard played Xavier is where any kind of larger fandom awareness of Xavier erases his more problematic traits, like he's Dumbledore or something. Meanwhile, I don't even think it is the sexification from Fassbender that made Magneto somebody who is a lot more temperate and that is given this new perspective that he got this whole story in this two-parter. I feel this is a response to the 2010s sort of that Killmonger perspective on villainy, where you can only say Magneto was right so many times before pointing to the fact that Magneto does have a lot of really excellent points. And so giving him this story, as we're seeing in this scene from the screen caps, the fact that so much of the episode was about Magneto, of all people, trying to be the person to stop Apocalypse from drawing first blood, to try and create a change in the character, that is such a significant shift. And it really is the next step in the evolution of the way that Magneto is portrayed. And it makes me all the more curious to see what kind of Magneto we are going to get from the MCU, which, for as popular as X-Men 97 is, those films are going to be the next big way that people view X-Men. And so the way that these characters have developed over the last 60 years, and now what we're seeing here, is going to make for some very interesting cinema when we get there.
And yeah, I just want to say that I used a term that was not super flattering for Magneto before, but like it's a little bit more like, Magneto and the audacity of this bitch. Like it is that he is this sort of out of control character when he's portrayed that way. But you're right. We have come to see villainy used to be coding for things. We would make minorities villains as code. And, a big Disney guy I am, but like, let's face it, a lot of Disney's most classic villains are very queer coded, even when they're after the member of the opposite sex, even when it's, Jafar coming for Jasmine, he still puts her in like a skimpy little bikini and chains her up like she's Princess Leia. And, but like Jafar's pretty gay. And like, it's a thing. We have evolved our perspective on villainy so much. And part of where this is all central to the discussion is, while in Krakoa, the era of X-Men, House of X, Powers of 10 by John Hickman, that would go on to be defined by writers like Jerry Duggan and Kieran Gillen going forward. Magneto and Xavier kind of represent good guys, but Apocalypse, outside of that one little block, and even then he's iffy, pretty much always represents a bad man. And he is happy to see bloodshed. It's sort of like Apocalypse is not that far off from MCU Thanos. MCU Thanos is like a bunch of people got to die so the world can be better. That's just what it is. And Apocalypse is kind of like a bunch of people have to die so that the greatest inheritors can inherit. And it's a conversation that makes these lines a little bit easier. You can sort of point to Xavier and Magneto, and oftentimes Xavier will, and this is a problem, no one's giving him a pass. Xavier will do things to people's minds to affect their free will to an end to gain what he wants. It's often on a low scale. Maybe it's freezing a room full of people to save someone, but mostly Xavier does horrifying small scale things. Magneto often does horrifying large scale things, or used to do horrifying large scale things. Ultimately, Apocalypse lives in the horrifying large scale. Apocalypse doesn't know how to turn that switch off. And this drew from a lot of really great canon. These last few episodes, Askani'Son, we saw some interpretive value from Age of Apocalypse, Days of Future Past. We saw a bit of drawing from Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. And now we're at drawing from Rise of Apocalypse. And I've read this book a bunch of times. And one of the things that made this engaging was this show is not trying to give you stories you've had before. The show is giving you new takes on things that line up the wikis, right?
Yes.
Like, that's really it. They just want that moment of, Gambit is ostensibly dead. And I believe with all of this focus on Apocalypse, and now at the end of this episode, Magneto is dead, I believe we're going to see Magneto create a new Horseman. And one of them will be Gambit, which Gambit was death in the comics at one point. I believe one of them will be Magneto, because wasn't Magneto vaguely a horseman in one of the Fox movies or something? Yes,
he was.
Yeah. So I think we're seeing wiki overlap instead of direct reinterpretation of stories, which for my sake, great. I'll just go read those comics. They're not less amazing because I'll have seen an alternate interpretation. And so I think the heart of these two episodes really came down to Apocalypse is always a bad man. Magneto is a good man fighting bad impulses. And Xavier is a man who denies he has bad impulses. And that trifecta, it didn't really leave room for other people. There was not a lot of other X-Men that got a lot of screen time here. Bishop had a lot of screen time, but I was a little thrown off by how much of his dialogue felt perhaps a little blaxploitive. He had very, and don't you damn do that. He had some really intense dialogue, which I appreciate the realism. My Bishop is a little bit more reserved, but that doesn't mean my interpretation of Bishop is the only interpretation of Bishop. You know, Kevo, what did these three men, Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse, kind of not leaving room for everyone else and highlighting their own story, what did that tell you?
Could you rephrase the question? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, no, like, you know, we see these three major figures that are seen as leaders of mutant kind, and they are the three main characters that are intersecting against each other throughout this. Did you get any kind of storytelling from these three characters coming together, that this was the narrative? Apocalypse, Xavier, and Magneto, each leaders of mutant factions.
I see what you were going for. I mean, I see what you see. You know, I think one of the issues with having such a large ensemble show is that you end up getting less focus on a lot of the members on the ensemble. Like, I hear what you're saying about Bishop, but I think you could just as easily say that Nightcrawler and Beast played very background roles. I think Rogue only had a little bit more of a role, unfortunately, through being the voice for Gambit being dead. I like your pitch about a potential Horseman. I feel like she might have been seeding the idea that time travel shenanigans might play a factor in bringing Gambit back. You know, who knows? We'll see where the rest of the season goes. You know, I found the could we reach Apocalypse story very interesting, because we see a lot of stories like that, and there is a lot of there's good in everyone if you can just reach them stories. And I think it's tough because we are in an era where, even though so much of storytelling throughout human society evolved from parables, a lot of people really reject being moralized at. But I think stories like this are important because it is important for people to be reminded. As much as I love Harley Quinn, where we get an almost good guy Joker, and Bat Fam, where Joker, again, you know, he's basically almost friendly in that Christmas special. You know, that's not how life works. And some people will always choose violence. And it really is important to be reminded that, for as much as people love to revel in villain culture and point out where villains have strong points, sometimes they're just being bad for the sake of bad. And showing the different aspects and ways that people come at moral quandaries through these three perspectives was very interesting and powerful.
It also got me thinking about how we view X-teams, right? Like, so often people say, oh, I want this era or that era. This was no era. Like you pointed out, we had Beast, we had Nightcrawler, we had Rogue, we had Bishop. This is no one specific era, because people who might say, oh, well, that's the early 90s. No, Nightcrawler was over on Excalibur. He was not a member of the X-Men. And then people might say the late 90s. And I would say, no, Bishop was actually on a time-traveling mission in a book called The Bishop, the Last X-Man. He was not on the team. They might point out the New X-Men era. Well, Beast was on New X-Men. Nightcrawler was over in Uncanny. And Bishop was out in Extreme. So this is doing such a great job pulling together heroes that it allows us to examine that sort of moral code culture that, you know, we're talking about. Because I agree with you. I think sometimes we get so excited about villain culture, we are able to forget the things that aren't okay. Like, Joker did horrible crimes against women using sexuality as an element of the torture, and he literally, seemingly at the time, executed a Robin. So when people are like, oh, the Joker's so cool, I'm like, yeah, there's nothing cooler than killing children and violence against women. Like, what are you saying is so cool about this guy? And I think with Apocalypse, we are looking at a member of a minority who has been through a lot, and even in his time was seen as a minority. That's something they make very clear throughout the course of these stories. Apocalypse is an outsider from his get, and as he grows and evolves and continues, he remains kind of an outsider. Even as a leader, he is still an outsider, right? And I feel like you could look at Apocalypse more easily than Joker and see something good. But for me, you know, the whole story, like you said, it's Magneto is trying to convince Apocalypse to sort of start the X-Men several thousand years earlier. And the X-Men are unsure of this. Ultimately, it does not go well. Surprise. But the hardest part for me was what I would refer to as perhaps the unconscionable delivery of his power-up. I understand even where we're coming from, pulling in celestial storytelling, pulling in the idea of eternity, binding together, you know, the elements of the fact that the celestial ship is a celestial item, and that's ship. I would even go further to say, hey, you know, I've done the homework, I've done the reading, I've read Judgment War, I know what happened in X Factor, what is it, 41 to 50? Like, I understand where this all seeds, but the power-up was too immediate for me. He just goes from being Apocalypse, the very powerful mutant, to being Apocalypse, the unstoppable mutant god, in like a moment by Deus Ex Machina. The part that made it a little tough for me was that I can't help but feel like with all of the Kang stuff, you had a little too much super godding running around in this story that somewhat took away from it. I found all of the best parts of the third and fourth episodes being the emotional core of these three men's journeys as they intersect, and as, you know, two are best friends, enemies, and lovers, and then Apocalypse, whatever the hell he's doing. I did find a lot of the storytelling a little too big, a little too manic, a little too out of control. Like the transformation sequence that you're showing on air, it really, for me, took a lot of the development out. And even if you want to point to places that were similar in the comics, that things happened, right? But this show is doing so many bolder, smarter things. I would have probably preferred to see Apocalypse transform a little differently.
You know, I think of the way that they had to sort of rush the last season of Steven Universe, the final arc, because they were cut short in terms of production. And so when it comes to animated storytelling, I think about things like budgeting your time. You only have so much time to show so many things. But I really also must agree, this almost Sailor Moon-like instantaneous transformation from sexy loincloth Apocalypse into the giant Grimace. It's not exactly narratively
like fulfilling.
It's not very narratively satisfying.
Yeah.
So if this is because we have a lot more to do with Apocalypse for the rest of this season, I can see the necessity for speed, but it is definitely truncating something that just makes it feel like this is just a new character replacing the character we'd had for the bulk of this two-part.
And speaking of replacing the character that we've had for the bulk of what's been going on, this Ramatut Kang Immortus stuff, I cannot help but think that there was an initial attempt for a synergistic approach to what was going to be like the Kang War storyline that was going to run through the movies. There had been a rumor going around that if Wolverine did appear in the upcoming, well, the now not upcoming, but the once upcoming Kang War, that he was going to be Wolverine from X-Men 97, played by Hugh Jackman. Okay, great. I already think this is a fun conversation, because that idea of transposing a character in multiple ways, that's visually and storytelling exciting, right? But the plans have changed, and the movies are being filmed, and one of them's about to come out, and Robert Downey Jr. is already out doing promo press for it in Asia, and he's committed to being Doctor Doom. We don't expect to ever see Kang again. We don't expect to ever see any version of Immortus or Ramatut. So I'm curious if this was meant to be indicative of something we were going to get, if it was going to have a crossover element, if maybe we were going to see a Kang reference being this Kang in the movie, so that everything comes together, because Marvel is putting a lot of money, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort behind X-Men 97. Mm-hmm. It feels kind of like a dangler now. It feels like this was meant to go somewhere.
And I am just very exhausted of this era of media release with lack of transparency. I understand a need to want the story to be spoiler-free and fresh, but it just feels like there is so much going on right now in so much media where the level of obfuscation over the reality and the intention of what the plan had been, it gets a little exhausting, and it makes it a little harder to enjoy the project at times. Of course, I'm immediately thinking of Doctor Who and the way that season 2 of the Disney era ended, and how it was a full year plus later that we were told, nope, that's it, that was the end, no Christmas special coming, and Russell T Davies is gone. Well, that makes the entire year that we were sat in anticipation very frustrating. It makes any amount of faith that we put very poorly placed. There are a lot of factors that went into the Kang shift, not the least of which being Jonathan Majors. So, it is fair to say there is only so much they could do. I also think there needs to, in this level of multiple project, multimedia endeavor, there needs to be an amount of grace and understanding in the idea of these stories evolving over time. They might have ultimately, more than anything, more than even Jonathan Majors, just felt, Kang is not really going in the direction that we wanted, so let's pivot. That's comic book storytelling. That's the nature of having so many interconnected titles and telling a live story where you sort of need to pivot and spin sometimes. And that needs to be okay too.
I mean, that really is the rumor that was going around, that it was almost like the Jonathan Majors disaster
timed out
a point-to-able reason, when the truth was underwhelming performance. I mean, I love Loki. It's like one of my favorite shows, and Loki is another character. I hate villain Loki. I love good guy, heartbroken brother Loki. So, and Kid Loki, phenomenal. So I feel like that really is a thing. I just want to add really quick, the history of X-Men projects have so many shoulda, coulda, wouldas on the books. Originally, Sigourney Weaver was in talks to be Emma Frost in Bryan Singer's X3. Viggo Mortensen was originally going to be playing Wolverine. Neil Patrick Harris was almost Nightcrawler. John Hurt was almost Magneto. Jim Caviezel was almost Cyclops. Rachel Lee Cook was in early talks to be Rogue. Lucy Liu was nearly Mystique. Wrestler Kevin Nash, better known as Big Daddy Cool Diesel, was almost Sabretooth. Grace Scott was almost Wolverine. Alice Eve was nearly Emma Frost in X-Men First Class, but at the last moment, she was not in it. Supposedly, she was never cast, but people have said that she was and dropped out. So, whoever knows. Poor January Jones gave such a panned performance anyway. Benjamin Walker from Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power was almost Beast. Charlize Theron was almost Jean Grey. David Harbour was nearly Blob. Angela Bassett and Janet Jackson were each nearly Storm, and Russell Crowe was going to be Wolverine. So, it would have been a real Valjean versus Javert situation with those two Wolverines,
Wow. Now we need that in Secret Wars.
Well, and we had Cavalrine which was so funny in Deadpool, you know, where we got that moment and it was just like, oh, stop. Because like so many of these guys have played multiple superheroes. First of all, Ben Affleck's chest in Batman could eat Ben Affleck as Daredevil, but
and then you have Doug Ray Scott, which feels so random, but at the same time, if you think about a lot of what Hugh Jackman's resume has been outside of Wolverine, he is also known for a lot of rom-com, a lot of sentimental film, and Doug Ray Scott is known for a lot more stuff like that. So that's very interesting.
Well, and like, I mean, yeah, how many people in X-Men are probably not the people you think of first for X-Men? Like, there's a weird number of Oscar winners attached to this franchise. And so it really does kind of throw off the metrics a little bit. I don't know how many people said to themselves, yes, Ian McKellen, Magneto. Like, I'm sure, please, one of the best castings of all time. But at the outset...
Meanwhile, we knew Patrick Stewart could just sit in a chair.
And occasionally point and say, go. Yeah, 1,000%. And so that's, I think, the sort of art of managing what did and didn't happen on paper. The truth is, this two-parter was a lot of character nuance, a lot of character study. There's interesting things that feel a little bit more like the battle had to recede to personal attacks. That moment when Xavier is like, I'm glad your mom left you. I only wish that she had suffocated you in the sand.
I bet your mom hated you too, you little bitch.
Right? And then the way Apocalypse kills Magneto is gut-wrenching, and then he just walks over Xavier's body and just leaves him there.
You're not worth it.
There's a scene that I refer to as my favorite scene in the history of X-Men, and it's after the final Hellfire Gala where everything is ruined. For me, in the comics, there is no truer X-Man than Rogue. Rogue is the most important X-Man of all time. She's not my personal favorite. She's in my top 5 X-Women ever, but I believe she represents the identity of Xavier's dream better than anyone. She has a unique relationship with Magneto. She has a unique relationship with Wolverine, with Storm. She is, for all intents and purposes, Rogue is the most important X-person in my mind, right? And seeing Bishop be the one to come rescue Xavier here instead of Rogue, who did it in the comics, was a really great way to touch on another person who has a very similar representation. But it's like we were saying earlier, so many of these characters have faded into the background this season, and that is a dynamic transformation of our expectation. This was more about the personal story than it was about an epic battle, which leaves room for the epic battle to come. And it's part of where it's not just that it references one of my favorite issues of Uncanny X-Men of all time, but the next episode focusing on essentially the Weapons Plus program is one of the greatest twists ever for me, because you didn't see it coming. We're so mired in the emotion of this. I remember saying to Kevo at this sequence at the end that, once Bishop takes Xavier home, please don't cut back to the mansion. Please just have it go out on black. And it did. And then you had the credits start, and then you got this post sequence. It was like they really understood the emotional value of this storytelling instead of trying to make it the world's biggest fight number. I was grateful, but at the same time, I need the rest of the season to pay this off quite as heavily as it set it up.
So how do you feel, though, both about the fact that this was a post-credit scene, which are we doing those or not? And how do you feel now about what is going to be a pivot in the middle of all of this action to what will probably be a non sequitur adventure? Do you think that is something that the audience needs right now?
I do, actually. I really do. I think we are in a place that the storytelling gets more and more difficult because there are so many emotional expectations attached to these characters at these points, and we are running full steam on these stories, And I think that oftentimes the audience doesn't have a chance to really engage with what they're watching and what they're reading. Uncanny 268, which this is a reference to, is, I mean, it literally looks exactly like the cover for anyone who hasn't seen it. The difference is Wolverine here is in a Black Ops outfit, but on the cover of 268, Natasha is in her, you know, late 80s cat suit. And, you know, I would say that perhaps the Jim Lee art has a bigger chest on Cap. That's about it. But I mean, the skyline even looks similar. That actually came in the middle of something known as the interim X-Men era, where the X-Men had all gone through something called the Siege Perilous and had been spat out all over time and all over the world. And they were slowly coming back together, being united by Forge and Banshee, which is something I referenced last episode, that now it's Forge and Bishop kind of pulling the X-Men all back together. It's a slightly better way to do it, I think. I like Banshee plenty, but he just doesn't really offer enough to this series. And this story did actually come out of nowhere. It did break up some high-stakes narrative stuff, and it gave us a chance to re-examine what was going on in the X-Men. I think when you do something so big that you've killed Magneto by sending Xavier back in time to the moment of Apocalypse rising to power, and you've sent Cyclops forward through time with Jean, and they raise Cable, and then they come back, you're looking at such significant piece of greater lore. And so it's sort of like each one of these stories is talking about someone uniquely displaced in time. Cable, a child from now sent to the future, comes back an old man. Xavier and Magneto go back to see Apocalypse, his earliest days. Going forward, now here, we're going to have Wolverine in a story. Wolverine, a man out of time in so many ways. Captain America, a man out of time in so many ways. And Black Widow, a woman whose history was hidden from her for so long. It allows us to paint a picture of macrocosmic, microcosmic, and deeply personal identity that I think it creates more fluidity. It's why when people are like, oh, I love it when it's bam, 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 every second, it's so crazy. One of the things that and this is such a random thing, but the creators of 24 had a 24-hour, 24-episode show. It was a TV show, like, 20 years ago. Had a book premiere where they were doing like a real-time show, and there were 24 episodes, and it'd be one full day, and it was called 24. Well, they ran through 24 hours worth of story in about 8 episodes. And it's because you can't just keep doing big explosion, big explosion, big explosion. The intimacy that this is going to provide us while still providing action, I think, is dynamic and exciting.
And for me, I feel I can only agree on wanting the bam, 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 depending on what those bams are. It can't all be action, but I think stuff like this, the quietness of just having Natasha and Steve show up, that to me is also a bam. The best part of the Celestial power-up was the fact that it was a Celestial. The best part of Kang showing up was that it was Kang. Something that I really love that I was talking about on our last broadcast for episodes 1 and 2 is the fact that we can do so many of these things, that especially in this era of Marvel media consumption, the casual viewer is so much more aware of so many more Marvel concepts thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but also we have all of this going on under one roof that we can pull these things in. Something I love so much about Marvel is that it is an interconnected universe. So I don't necessarily want to see like a cavalcade of Avengers of all times, but you can have Steve and Natasha come in for a more than significant cameo. You can pull these characters in. That is what is so great about it, is that it doesn't have to all fall on the shoulders of just the X-Men. And that is really cool. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can provide for us on that level for the rest of this season. Because I agree with you. It can't be all action all the time.
It's where I actually really loved that the first episode was sort of the Summers family plus Clan Askani. The second episode was X-Force and X-Factor. And even then, X-Force felt a little bit like the best of all the student titles ever. We had, significant appearances from Quentin, from Chamber, from Monet. Here, we got to have, essentially a look at Clan Akaba, I guess. A look at Xavier and Magneto as individuals in this broader picture. Like you mentioned, more incredible depth from Rogue. And the next thing we're getting is a Weapons Plus story. I think that's a really great way to showcase everything, because how often do fans say, oh, I want this as a show. I want this as a run. I want that thing interpreted. Well, you might not be getting all of it, but you're getting enough of it. You're getting huge chunks, and the way it's building into a bigger picture, I'm excited about. And I know they're developing season 4 already, right? Like season 3 confirmed, season 4 in development.
Something like that. Yeah.
So for my money, I feel like episodes 1 and 2 are great episodes to talk about. Episodes 3 and 4 are great episodes to reflect on. I'm excited to see what episode 5 delivers. A little slower now, coming down from that like first 3, and then, because we had that first 3, so we watched the first 2, and then we watched 3 and 4 together because 3 and 4 were a 2-parter and they were released a week apart. So we've had 2 a week, and now we're about to drop down to 1. Kind of a bummer, but I'm willing to see where it goes. I'm willing to keep going on this ride. I love that the balance they're striking is accessibility and fandom big notes. And I really hope they can keep pulling this off, especially knowing the backstage drama, especially knowing what sounds like were really tough working conditions for a number of the people involved. The voice cast is so proud to be a part of this. They're so excited to connect with the fans and support the fans. And I only want to see it continue to do well.
Yeah, and I was paying attention to the credits this week after the point you made last week. And yeah, Beau DeMayo is credited as writing, as a writer on both of these episodes. So, we're still seeing his work and influence. And as you said, season 3 is in production. Season 4, I believe, is in pre-production, scripting, and storying. So you don't typically do that unless the network is telling you good things. So I'm excited for this. I hope we see a little bit faster turnaround between seasons 2 and 3, or maybe specials or something to make that wait a little less interminable. And yeah.
Well, I can't wait to come back and talk about more of this. Monday, if you're tuning in on the podcast, we have another classic episode. We're going to be talking about some big deal Wolverine stories. It's a great time to tie into some classic Wolverine origin stuff. We'll be talking about Weapon X, the draft, the Logan files, and a special one-shot that was sponsored by Doritos, released in Canada, called Son of Canada.
Sure.
You gotta talk about it to believe it. It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. After that, we have this incredible episode. We have another episode coming up about 2 Wolverine stories very influenced by Japanese artistry and history, with Elektra Wolverine the Redeemer and Wolverine Itsuke. So definitely recommend checking those out. But there's a whole lot of stuff here on this network you guys can check out, whether you're watching us on YouTube on X's for Comics or over on X's for Show. We love making this show for you guys. And this guy over here produces all of it. Kevo, do you have any final thoughts? And where can everybody find you on the internets?
Final thoughts. I really hope that the next season of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man meets the bar that X-Men 97 is setting for second seasons. I enjoyed the first, but I would really like a lot more. And this is setting a really good standard for remakes, reboots, for animated television, for Marvel television, pretty much everything. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this season, and you can find me on the socials at Kevoreally. That's Kevoreally. Nico, what about you?
Oh, you guys can find me all over this network, like the channels I've already mentioned, comics, show, etc. Don't forget to check out the Billy Club, our examination of everything Daredevil, going back to his first ever appearance way back in '64. We have made our way into the 70s already somehow. Wild.
Wow.
Yeah, we're almost at the Miller era. We're just a few weeks off from that. We're just about to get where Karen Page starts dating Ghost Rider, which in the TV show they made Punisher. But in the comics, it's Ghost Rider. So we're having a great time. We're tying in stuff like Black Widow from the end of this episode. She and Daredevil were a couple for a while. So we are covering all of the Black Widow stuff because it was actually called Daredevil and Black Widow for several years. So we're excited to bring all of that to you. So definitely check that out. Of course, if you guys want to follow me, that's Nico Action, Nico Action. And if you guys heard the music in the background, I did not even say that right. I'm so excited to tell you about it. If you guys like the music you heard in the background, it's Nico Action Music, Nico Actionmusic. And I see you out there streaming, downloading, commenting, liking, and subscribing. Do me a favor, keep those things up. This way we know what you guys want us to cover, and we can keep making high quality entertainment for all of you. The faster turnaround than X-Men 97 second season. But the other thing you guys can do for us, number one, please stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Number two, please be brave. But number three, evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, that's X-Men 92. Who you are today is X-Men 97. But it's who you are tomorrow, that's X-Men starring Dupe. And until we come back for some exciting ecstatics action, we'll see you.